And in those 5 minutes, we're gonna read Solaris. Bro, there's a lot to talk about. We're just gonna pick off where I left off. Who knows how far we'll get. See, I might have finished the dreams. So he dreamt. I'm reading a dreaming chapter, you know, the dreams. And he's like dreaming. And he feels like he's dreaming like he just met God, bro. As if he just met God, bro. Like, that's crazy. He's in the vacuum of space. Pink clouds are surrounding him. He feels something touching him. And he can't see it. He can't move or anything. Bro. And then he thinks about his, like, ex, Rhea. So he thinks... I think we're alluding that might be Rhea, not the Lord. But... or whatever... this book is gonna say it is. On the 15th day, zenith into transparent filaments. Ranks climbing effortlessly towards the light. Disconcerting for me, although its novelty ought not to have been disturbing, since 2 or 3 times a year, and oftener when luck smiled on them, Solaris believed forms and creations never previously recorded. Observed. Wow. So Solaris is like a I don't know, bro. Solaris are people who like believe in that eternity must happen when you meet another alien civilization, and you guys like, you know, click, something like that. And if that happens, you know, they think that's what eternity is. Everyone living peacefully together in that way, maybe, I think. But then it's also described how eternity is like something a little bit more than that. I forgot what he said. Because you know how I said, because they're called Solaris, which means they're from Solaris, right? So I think I don't know, it doesn't say if they're the first people, but one of the earlier peoples who first showed up on this planet, and you know, they felt the ocean's effects and stuff, which I believe the ocean does different effects every time. I'm not sure. I don't think this is the first. I think only recently the ocean has been sending like forms out of the mind, maybe. Like, well, that's probably not true. It's because they've done it before, but whatever they are. But basically what I'm saying, the Solaris were like one of the first people who went there, and then they've basically formed a religion from science, but not really. Like, it was based on the ocean. They thought, oh, if we could one day somehow understand this alien entity, which is so not being able to be understood, maybe like they thought this was God, you know, or this was eternity, and to understand it, to live with it, would be like paradise. But then some guy named Minutus, something like that. Minutus, I think. Some guy named Minutus, he was like one of those like first philosophers or whatever, and he basically turned them all down. And then that was the end of the Solaris, basically. You know, when they started that whole religion, I think, like when they switched over to more fact-based stuff, they started studying the ocean a little more. They were like, we can't, you know, but every time they do, you know, they were like, we can try to understand it, and if we can, you know, it disproves them or whatever. But you know, so like, but every test they do, they can't predict it. It's too unpredictable. So They just think of it as a scientific thing, but the Solaris don't see it that way. They see it like a some kind of god or something. I think. It doesn't say that, but it feels like it's alluding there. I'm trying to find out where I am. This performance, wait. This performance had terrified Rhea, but it was no less disconcerting for me, although its novelty ought not to have been disturbing, since 2 or 3 times a year, and oftener when luck smiled on them, Solaris believed forms and creations never previously recorded. So let me go back and see if this is on the 15th day. The soda could be glanced to the cap, wings of foam, like the skies, the ocean went on, giving birth to these fantastic birds. Okay. Okay. We'll move on. Okay. We'll move on. Not sure where he is. The following night, an hour before the blue sunrise, we witnessed another effect. The ocean was becoming phosphorescent. Pools of gray light were rising and falling to the rhythm of invisible waves. Isolated at first, these gray patches quickly spread and joined together, and soon made up a carpet of spectral light extending as far as the eye could see. The intensity of the light grew progressively for some 15 to 20 minutes. Then the phenomenon came to a surprising end. A pall of shadow approached from the west, stretching along a front several hundred miles wide. When this moving shadow had overtaken the station, the phosphorescent part of the ocean, retreating eastward, seemed to be trying to escape from the vast extinguisher. It was like an aurora put to flight, and retreating as far as the horizon, which was edged by a fading glow before the darkness conquered. Shortly afterwards, the sun rose above the ocean wastes, which were furrowed by a few solidified waves whose mercurial reflections played on my window. So he wrote all that just to basically say nighttime came. The phosphorescent was a recorded effect sometimes observed before the eruption of an asymmetriad, but always indicative of a local increase in the activity of the plasma. Nevertheless, in the course of the next 2 weeks, nothing happened, either inside or outside the station, except on one occasion when in the middle of the night I heard the sound of a piercing scream which came from no human throat. The shrill, protracted howling woke me out of a nightmare, and at first I thought it was the beginning of another. Before falling asleep, I had heard the dull noises coming from the direction of the laboratory, part of which lay directly over my cabin. They sounded like heavy objects and machinery being shifted. When I realized that I was not dreaming, I decided that the scream also came from above, but could not understand how it managed to penetrate the soundproofing ceiling. The terrible sounds went on for almost an hour until my nerves jangled and I was pouring with sweat. I was about to go up and investigate when the screaming stopped, to be replaced by more muffled sounds as of objects being dragged across the floor. Rhea and I were sitting in the kitchen 2 days later when Snow came in. He was dressed as people dress on Earth after their day's work, and looked like a different person, taller and older. He did not look at us or pull up a chair, but stood at the table, opened a can of meat, and began cramming it down between mouthfuls of bread. His jacket sleeve brushed against the greasy top of the can. "Look out, Snow, your sleeve." "What?" He grunted, then went on stuffing himself with food as if he had not eaten for days. He poured out a glass of wine, drank it at a gulp, sighed, and wiped his lips. Then he looked at me with bloodshot eyes and mumbled, "So you stopped shaving, huh?" Rhea cleared the table. Snow swayed on his heels, then pulled a face and stuck his teeth noisily, deliberately exaggerating the action. He stared at me insistently. "So you've decided not to shave?" I made no reply. "Believe me," he went on, "you're making a mistake. That was how it started with him, too. Go and lie down." "What? Just when I feel like talking?" "Listen, Kelvin, perhaps it wishes well. Perhaps it wants to please us but doesn't quite know how to set up about the job. It spies out desires in our brains, and only 2% of mental processes are conscious. That means it knows us better than we know ourselves. We've got to reach an understanding with it. Are you listening?" Don't you want to? Why? He was sobbing by now. Why don't you shave? Shut up. You're drunk. Me? Drunk? And what if I am? Just because I drift about from one end of space to another and poke my nose into the cosmos? Does that mean I'm not allowed to get drunk? Why not? You believe in the mission of mankind, don't you, Kelvin? Gibarian told me about you before you started letting his beard grow. It was a very good description. Just don't go to the lab if you don't want to lose your faith. It belongs to Sartorius, Faust in reverse. He's looking for a cure for immortality. He is the last knight of the Holy Contact, the man we need. His latest discovery is pretty good too. Prolonged dying. Not bad, eh? Agonia perpetua of the straw hats. And still, you don't drink, Kelvin? He raised his swollen eyelids and looked at Rhea, who was standing quite still with her back up to the wall. Then he began chanting. Oh, fair Aphrodite, child of ocean, your divine hand. He choked with laughter. It fits, eh, Kelvin? He broke off in a fit of coughing. Shut up and get out, I grated through clenched teeth. You're chucking me out? You too? You don't shave and you chuck me out. What about my warnings and my advice? Interstellar colleagues ought to help each other. Listen, Kelvin, let's go down and open the traps and call out. It might hear us, but what's its name? We have named all the stars and all the planets, even though they might already have had names of their own. What a nerve. Come on, let's go down. We'll shout it such a description of the trick it played us that it will be touched. It will make us silver symmetry ads. Pray to us in calculus. Send us its blood-stained angels. It will share our troubles and terrors and beg us to help it die. It is already begging us, imploring us. It implores us to help it die with every one of its creations. You're not amused, but you know I'm just a joker. If man had more of a sense of humor, things might have turned out differently. Do you know what he wants to do? He wants to punish this ocean. Hear it screaming out of all its mountains at once. If you think he'll have the nerve to submit his plan to that bunch of doddering ancients who sent us here to redeem sins we haven't committed, you're right. He is afraid. But he is only afraid of that little hat. He won't let anybody see the little hat. He won't dare. Not Faust. I said nothing. Wow. I said nothing. Snow swaying increased. Tears were streaming down his cheeks and onto his clothes. He went on. Who is responsible? Who is responsible for this situation? Gibarian? Geese? Fuck. The cat scared me. Einstein? Plato? All criminals. Just you think, in a rocket, a man takes the risk of bursting like a balloon or freezing or roasting or sweating all his blood out in a single gush before he can even cry out. And all that remains is bits of bone floating inside armored hulls. In accordance with the laws of Newton as corrected by Einstein, those two milestones in our progress, down the road we go, all in good faith, and see where it gets us. Think about our success, Kevin. Think about our cabins, the unbreakable plates, the immortal sinks, legions of faithful wardrobes, devoted cupboards. I wouldn't be talking this way if I weren't drunk. But sooner or later somebody was bound to say it, weren't they? You sit there like a baby in a slaughterhouse, and you let your beard grow. Who's to blame? Find out for yourself. He turned slowly and went out, putting an arm out against the doorpost to steady himself. Then his footsteps died away along the corridor. I tried not to look at Rhea, but my eyes were drawn to hers in spite of myself. I wanted to get up, take her in my arms, and stroke her hair. I did not move. Victory. Victory. Let's see. Another 3 weeks. The shutters rose and fell on time. I was still a prisoner in my nightmares, and every morning the play began. But was it a play? I put on a feigned composure and Rhea played the same game. The deception was mutual and deliberate, and our agreement only contributed to our ultimate evasion. We talked about the future and our life on Earth on the outskirts of some great city. We would spend the rest of our lives among green trees and under a blue sky and never leave Earth again. Together we planned the layout of our house and garden and argued over details like the location of a hedge or a bench. I do not believe that I was sincere for a single instant. Our plans were impossible, and I knew it, for even if Rhea could leave the station and survive the voyage, how could I have got through the immigration checks with my clandestine passenger? Earth admits only human beings, and even then only when they carry the necessary papers. Rhea would be detained for an identity check at the first barrier. We would be separated, and she would give herself away at once. The station was the one place where we could live together. Rhea must have known that or found it out. One night I heard Rhea get out of bed silently. I wanted to stop her, but in the darkness and silence we occasionally managed to throw off our despair for a while by making each other forget. Rhea did not notice that I had woken up. When I stretched my hand out, she was already out of bed and walking barefoot towards the door. Without daring to raise my voice, I whispered her name, but she was outside, and a narrow shaft of light shone through the doorway from the corridor. There was a sound of whispering. Rhea was talking to somebody. But who? Panic overtook me when I tried to stand up, but my legs would not move. I listened, but heard nothing. The blood hammered through my temples. I started counting and was approaching 1,000 when there was a movement in the doorway and Rhea returned. She stood there for a second without moving, and I made myself breathe evenly. Chris, she whispered. I did not answer. She slid quickly into bed and lay down, taking care not to disturb me. Questions buzzed in my mind, but I would not let myself be the first to speak, and made no more. The silent questioning went on for an hour, maybe more. Then I fell asleep. The morning was like any other. I watched Rhea furtively, but could not see any change in her behavior. After breakfast, we sat at the big panoramic window. The station was hovering among purple clouds. Rhea was reading, and as I stared out, I suddenly noticed that by holding my head at a certain angle, I could see us both reflected in the window. I took my hand off the rail. Rhea had no idea that I was watching her. She glanced at me, obviously decided from my posture that I was looking at the ocean, then bent to kiss the place where my hand had rested. In a moment, she was reading her book again. Rhea, I asked gently, where did you go last night? Last night? Yes. You must have been dreaming, Chris. I didn't go anywhere. You didn't leave the cabin? No, it must have been a dream. Perhaps. Yes, perhaps I dreamt it. The same evening, I started talking about our return to Earth again, but Rhea stopped me. Don't talk to me about the journey again, Chris. I don't want to hear about it anymore. You know very well. What? No, nothing. After we went to bed, she said that she was thirsty. There's a glass of fruit juice on the table over there. Could you give it to me? She drank half of it, then handed it to me. I'm not thirsty. Drink to my health, then, she smiled. It tasted slightly bitter, but my mind was on other things. She switched the light off. Rhea, if you won't talk about the voyage, let's talk about something else. If I did not exist, would you marry? No. Never? Never. Why not? I don't know. I was by myself for 10 years and I didn't marry again. Let's not talk about that. My head was spinning, as if I had been drinking too much. No, let's talk about it. What if I begged you to? To marry again? Don't be silly, Rhea. I don't need anybody except you. I felt her breath on my face and her arms holding me. Say it another way. I love you. Her head fell to my shoulder and I felt tears. Rhea, what's the matter? Nothing, nothing, nothing. Her voice echoed into silence and my eyes closed. The red dawn woke me with a splitting headache and a neck too stiff that I felt as if the bones were wedged together. My tongue was swollen and my mouth felt foul. He was poisoned. Then I reached out for Rhea, and my hand touched a cold sheet. I already knew it. I sat up with a start. I was alone. Oh, it's a nightmare. You see what the fuck I'm telling you about? Bro, is it happening? Is it not happening? What the fuck is going on? Are you dreaming? Is this another dream from a dream? This book is 3.5. I might give it a 4. It's just the science is kind of hard for me. The science is a little difficult, and to read pages on pages. And like I said, this is the French edition, so who knows what the Polish one has? It's probably better. I was alone in bed and in the cabin. The concave window reflected a row of red suns. I dragged myself out of bed and staggered over to the bathroom. Reeling like a drunkard and propping myself up to the furniture, it was empty. So was the workshop. Rhea! Calling, running up and down the corridor. Rhea! I screamed one last time, then my voice gave out. I already knew the truth. I do not remember the exact sequence of events after that. As I stumbled half naked through all the length and breadth of the station, it seems to me that I even went into the refrigeration section, searched through the storage rooms, hammered with my fists on bolted doors, then came back again to throw myself against the doors which had already resisted me. I half fell down flights of steps, picked myself up, and hurried onwards. When I reached the double armored doors which opened onto the ocean, I was still calling, still hoping that it was a dream. Somebody was standing by me. Hands took hold of me and pulled me away. I came to my senses again, lying on a metal table in the little workshop and gasping for breath. Oh. Hold on. Fuck. My cousin's here. I have to go. But let me see what he found. When I reached the armor room, it was a dream. Somebody was standing by me. Hands took hold of me and pulled me away. Alright, hold on. Fine. Let me see what's up. I have to go, okay? Fuck! Damn. That was pretty good.